Hello everybody, welcome to Sociology 325, and we are first going to look at Chapter 1 and 2, The Road to Inequality and Mark's Wake. To start with, the text talks about Raggedy Dick by Horatio Algier Jr., and he talks about a young boy who saved a boy from drowning, and he was conveniently given a job that was $10 a week, which was 3 times more than what he had been given. So this really just set the young boy on his way. And Algier had over 100 plus novels, and a lot of them were about high-minded, poor young white boys who were seeking fame and fortune. And these books were very popular at a time in the late 19th century where there was a wide range of economic inequality. And so that brings us to what is social inequality. So social inequality is a situation in which individuals, families, or members of larger structures like neighborhoods or cities vary in access to such valued resources such as wealth, income, education, healthcare, and jobs. So as you can see, the picture on the left, the gentleman is talking about that there should be affordable health care for all because that does differentiate, that is part of social inequality. And then also on the right, we see where race is depicted as the access that is available for certain schools. So different races are available to go to most selective schools rather than open access schools, which are less restrictive. So it's really important that we look at social inequality, and that leads us to social stratification. And now any society, not just the United States, displays social stratification. Now this is a deeply embedded hierarchy. So as you can tell by the picture, there's 3 levels with some ladders on the side. And this embedded hierarchy provides different groups varied rewards, resources, and privileges, and establishing structures and relationships that both determine and legitimate those outcomes. So social stratification is talked about a lot within the United States, which is why I provided this picture for you. So you can kind of see the differences within what may be social classes, the type of clothing that they wear, the entertainment and technology that they have. And so I just thought this was a great picture to kind of depict what we know social stratification to be. And a third central concept we'll look at is ideology. And these are values and beliefs that support society's social stratification systems, so what we just showed before, and their distribution of wealth, power, and income. So as you can see, I have the picture here depicting wealth, people having lots of money, power, and then also income and what goes into income. Now, the American ideology emphasizes the centrality of individual achievement, equal opportunity, as well as the importance of hard work. And this is most often received by politicians, business leaders, and media spokespersons. So this is really pushed upon people. So you see in the picture on the left, we have Michael Jordan. I've always believed that if you put in the work, the results will come. One of the great classic celebrity examples of hard work, coming from North Carolina, attending UNC, and then becoming one of the greatest basketball players ever. The trophy we have in the middle that kind of shows the individual achievement. And then also on the right, we see equal opportunity, which is something that people are still striving for in a lot of different ways within the United States. So you have social reproduction, which helps structure and activities to keep social inequality to be transmitted from one generation. And in order for that to happen, you have to have the social reproduction groups follow this habitus to keep the existing structures and cultural standards existing. So an example of this could be those who are very proud of their farming heritage that encourage their children to be successful farmers and not to view themselves as just the working class. So instead of just thinking, oh, we're this type of class, they expect them to be very proud of what they've been a part of as a culture, as an existing structure being a farm family, such as, the Democrats and the Republicans. So moving on through the different forms of capital, we have to talk about class. Now, class may be different than what you've known about it before. So the standard idea of American society in regards to schooling leaves out the idea of class. Class is a large category of similarly ranked people located in a hierarchy and distinguished from other large categories in the hierarchy by traits such as their occupation, education, income, and wealth. So let's take a look from your text about social reproduction and schooling, since we're talking about class and schooling. So you can see here the cultural capital for working class respondents show that parents often provide little guidance through the educational process and downplay the importance of school and a child's ability to do well at it. So it's just not something that they put a lot of emphasis on. Whereas the middle class, the parents are supporting, often guiding their children's educational progress, and emphasizing the importance of schooling, especially college. It's one of those things where these parents in this form of cultural capital will say, there's no other choice, you have to go to college. Now, for social capital for the working class, few academically oriented peers or positive teacher contacts that might have promoted academic success, whereas the middle class respondents are immersed in school networks enhancing the pursuit of education. These are the people that are generally involved in the PTO. They have the time, the PTO, the PTA, the parents that are able to be involved in those different things, very adamant about their child's education. Then for human capital for the working class, there's frequent negative memory of school performance and of school itself. It's not exactly something that they've necessarily enjoyed or they remember spending a lot of time or happiness in, whereas the middle class has a widespread sense of having received the benefits of education. They really feel like it made a difference in them as a person, educational, social elements. And then financial capital, for the working class, about half of the respondents were dissatisfied with the nature of and payment from their jobs, and about half were content with their work. So it's kind of the financial capital at the bottom. Do you think maybe if they would have been pushed more positively from the cultural, social, and human capital, that the financial capital would be much more positive? Not sure. And then for the middle class, a clear majority of Gorman's subjects were satisfied with the content of their work and the financial rewards that they've received from all of the capital examples above. So let's go ahead and hop over to chapter 2. Like I said, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on different things in chapter 1. So chapter 2 is super important because it talks about sociological theory. Now, sociological theory is the combination of observations and insights providing systematic explanations of social life. So first, let's start with the Davis-Moore theory of social stratification. So remember, you already know what social stratification is. So the structural functional theory is a perspective suggesting that groups in interaction tend to adjust to one another in a fairly stable, conflict-free way. So there's not much argument, and they believe that Davis and Moore argue that social stratification is inevitable and it's necessary, and that those with critical occupations must be compensated, that their position must be high in the social scale and must command great prestige, high salary, ample leisure, and the like. So you might wonder why in the top right-hand corner I have a picture of doctors and nurses and surgeons. Well, these people are an example of the structural functional theory, where it's a group that's interaction tend to adjust to one another in a fairly stable and conflict-free way. They're all normally going after the same goal, to save patients' lives. So while they may have conflicts at times, it's a fairly stable structure. And Davis and Moore believe that these are critical occupations, as I said, that need to be compensated. So these are probably more of your people who have a higher salary, and they also have a great prestige. A lot of times we give a lot of praise to doctors and nurses and surgeons, and sometimes not enough praise for them. Now, Melvin Tooman said heck no to Davis Moore. He believed that well-paid people are not necessarily more valuable than the less affluent individuals. So an example that he gave is such that the unskilled workers in a factory are as essential to the engineers to keep a factory running. Now, something that's another example of that, going back to the medical field, is I don't know how many of you know what a CNA is, a certified nursing assistant. A lot of times on the medical hierarchy, CNAs are found to be at the bottom. But without CNAs, you don't have a lot of work that's taken care of so the nurses and the doctors can do their work that they're required to do. So Tooman would probably agree with me in that the CNAs are just as important a lot of times than the nurses, the surgeons, and the doctors. Tooman also noted that many parents and not students generally pay for their schooling. He stated that well-educated students receive psychic benefits from their schooling or training. There is a life of greater freedom and flexibility than most full-time workers and of high prestige enjoyed by the college student. So he then goes on to explain that, a lot of times these students are not forking this out of pocket and they're receiving all of this prestige and flexibility thanks to mom and dad. He believes that social stratification system is based on the influence of occupational groups or their lobbyists and not the individual talent and training. And to put that in layman's terms, who you know and who will fight for you will help you, not just your individual talent and training. This makes Tooman a conflict theorist. So now we're going to move on to Marxist theory of capitalism and social stratification. So more and more people are, analyzing social stratification, what it really means. Now, I could go through all of the different details that Marx talked about, but two things that I wanted to talk about were the two unknown classes that a lot of people don't talk about. We talk about the bourgeoisie, we talk about the proletariat, but nobody really has ever mentioned these two groups. We have the petite bourgeoisie, which is the small business class, whose members never accumulate enough profit to expand their holdings and to challenge the bourgeoisie as a group. And then you have the lumpen proletariat, which is a portion of the working class comprised of society's dregs, the swindlers, brothel keepers, beggars, and such, who are disengaged from the revolutionary struggle. So I wanted you guys to learn about them so you didn't think that everyone was just compiled into those two different categories. Now, your text has a great table that talks about the central concepts of Marx's theory. So I want to go through those real quick. It talks about the core concept, the mode of production with the substructure determining what the superstructure is. Now remember, your reading has those details, so if you're unsure about those vocabulary words, go ahead and look those up in your text. And then the mode of production determining the class structure. So within capitalism, you have the two classes, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, who differ in their relationship by their means of production. The bourgeoisie receiving ever-expanding profit, while the proletariat obtaining wages which decline in value over time. And then the social forces that support the bourgeoisie's control, which is a powerful ideology bolstered by false consciousness and an oppressive government. So, thirdly, then the proletariat's exploitation promoting the spread of conflict with the bourgeoisie, which led to the eventual revolution. And then the emergence of socialism with the proletariat in control. So, I'm not going to read the last point. Again, that's a great summary of Marx's theory of capitalism and social stratification. Again, like I said, you should have read through chapter 2, so you'll understand that table a bit. So, a person who started to go against Marx, even though he slightly believed some of what he said, was Max Weber. So as you can see on the right-hand side, Max Weber, strapping young gentleman. He believed that class is a set of individuals with similar chances for gaining income and wealth in the business world. And he said that an individual's class position will influence their status. So on the left-hand side, I thought it was a great example of giving you a visual of where everyone's in the same class. Everyone has a similar chance to gain income and wealth in the business world sitting in this class. So if class positions influence their status, then we need to know what status. Back real quick, we see this one right here. Regina is the leader of the party. So based on their class, and then as she forms and is accepted into their status, joins their party. Some modern examples of parties include political parties, consumer groups, unions, business organizations, foundations, civic groups, and more. So there are 3 types of authority that parties exercise. So once a party is formed, they have to have some form of authority, right? So there are 3 different types. The bureaucratic system of authority, aka administers the tasks controlling an organization's operation. Then there's a traditional system of authority, aka generally patriarchal person who maintains legitimacy based on established belief. So this is usually husbands, fathers, masters, lords, kings. Game of Thrones, anyone? Sound familiar? Traditional system of authority. And then you have a charismatic system of authority, aka there is a person who pursues a mission driven by a powerful sense of a divine purpose and draws followers who are committed to that same mission. So what are some of the big differences between Marx and Weber? So Marx versus Weber. Your textbook, again, provides an awesome table that talks about the theorist context between Marx and Weber, their source of stratification, where they believe it came from, the analysis of capitalism, because in talking with status and power, capitalism is now involved, and then the prospect of a revolution. Can a revolution occur from these different things? Now, moving on from Weber and Marx, we go on to Eric Wright, who is pictured on the right-hand side. He agreed with Marx in regards to ownership, but also believed that there are other traits that should be a factor, including control over ownership, where owners make basic decisions about their investment and expansion, such as where to invest corporate profits or whether to take over another company. He also believed that control over the production process should occur, so that there should be managers or other authorities that develop a strategy about production. For instance, whether to increase or decrease or maintain the production level of whatever the product may be. He also believes that there should be control over the employees, that the focus here involves a range of supervision, whether it's over the entire organization, a portion of it, or over nobody at all. Such as there are foremen that work in factories. Most of us have some form of supervisor or boss that we work for. And then finally, skill level, that some people acquire distinct abilities through training or special talent that provides them a valuable contribution to that particular organization. That within a company, employees can range in skill level from highly credentialed managers or consultants to manual workers with few or little to no formal qualifications and training. So, Wright illustrates factors throughout the text, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on those. So we're going to look at Perucci and Wysong's theory of class. So by this point, you've had about 3 different examples of class. So Perucci and Wysong gave us the elite, the privileged class, the superclass, and then also the credentialed class and the professionals. So as you can see on the chart on the right-hand side, you have the superclass, who are generally the owners and employers. You then have the privileged class, which part of that is the credentialed class, so your managers and professionals. Then you have the comfort class, the contingent class, wages. So the comfort class would actually be an example of your professionals, And then as your text talks about, it goes further into the contingent class and then also the excluded class. And it also talks about briefly about the difference between the haves and the have-nots. So the privileged classes versus the new working class. So this is the haves and the have-nots. So there is a great table of the summary of the different theories that we talked about, the 3 theories in regards to social stratification between Weber, Wright, Pershutzi, and Wysong. And so it's great to look at those central ideas of theories. And then also your text talks about the power elite theories. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through here, but Mills, Domhoff, and Dye provide great examples of the power elite theories where they divide class with the upper class, the largely upper class, and the upper middle class, and they kind of look at that top portion of the previous scale that was provided to us by Pertuzzi and Wise.